Hey guys, Lemon Press-ийн ах баяр байна.
We started a first EV company in Singapore together. What's more important? What's your priority? Is it money versus is it doing the good deed? Is it being a good father?
Who is Дэйв Лий? What's your story before IT?
I think what's very important is who you affiliate yourself with, right? All the Mongolian users that are holding their assets on XMeta, they are insured, right? And, E is, he's one of the most respected traders, right?
За өнөөдөр миний бие нэгэн зочинтой ярилцлага хийхээр одоо бэлдсэн байна. За энэхүү зочин маань Ихбит Global-ийн co-founder, XMeta crypto биржийн гүйцэтгэх захирал, IC Esports-ийн chairman Дэйв Лий хүрэлцэж ирсэн байна. Thank you for being here, Dave.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
So Dave, we have a lot to cover on today.
Okay.
And I want to talk about the last 2 years journey in essential of IHC and Ихбит Global. But before we, there's also, you guys have been pretty successful with the eSport team so far. You guys have been doing a lot of work. XMeta's version 2.0 is coming to launch these days. Next month. So there's a lot to cover on. But before we get into that, I've been going over the lots of media you gave these few months, but none of the questions seem to delve into who was Dave before IHC and Ихбит Global. You just came out of nowhere as far as Mongolians are concerned. So I want to touch on that. We want to start off with who is Дэйв Лий? What's your story before IHC?
So let's see. I guess before all that, a lot of people have this confusion. They think I'm Singaporean, or there's been a lot of mix up on that as well. I'm Korean American, so my parents are Korean descended, migrated to the States. My grandparents migrated as a first generation. I moved out to Asia a little over a decade ago, right? I was working in New York, and I guess I was doing pretty well. I had a cafe in Upper West Side. I had a bar in downtown.
In the States?
Yeah, in New York.
Ah, okay.
Right, in the New York City. So I was raised in Philly, in Philadelphia.
All right.
I went to school in Philly. After graduating, I moved to New York. Everybody wants to go to the Big Apple.
Very true. Yeah.
And did pretty well. And one day I was just like, so you're going back decade where back then it's not like today where all the American or Asians in America, we try to move to the Asia now, right? That's the kind of the trend. Asia is becoming the new hub of everything.
Right.
Back then, all the Asians were trying to move to the US for their American dream. So from university, right, like all the international students, etc., like they're coming, and all you heard was, oh, you're so lucky to be American, because they're all there alone, right? So their families are back at home. So especially holidays, etc., it kind of gets lonely and tough. And my family tried to accommodate a lot of the international students all the time. So on holidays, I would bring all of them to our homes, Christmas, Thanksgiving, etc. And I guess as I got older, and at one point, so around when I was like 25, 26, I was like, look, there's got to be a little bit more out there for me, right? Everyone's trying to come to the US, and all you hear is how lucky you are, how blessed you are, how fortunate you are to be educated, to be an American, etc. But yet you're still Asian, right? So I thought it would be maybe it's an opportunity for me to go out there. If every Asian that I meet is telling me how fortunate, lucky I am, well, why don't I test myself out there and see how lucky, how fortunate I am, right?
Right.
So my mindset was always a little bit different, right? So that's what triggered me to kind of come out to Asia and see what it was like. It was supposed to be maybe maximum 3 months, 6 months kind of thing to kind of see how things were. And that turned out to be over a decade, right?
Wow.
So first I moved to China. So I first arrived in Beijing. And just given by my trade, I was a trader. So I work with a lot of steel plants, etc. in China, sourcing, commodities, etc. from Australia, Indonesia, right, Mongolia, and so forth. And that's kind of how I first learned about Mongolia back then, right? I believe back then people were talking black diamond, right? So the coal, the whole thing. Mongolia currency, Tugrik, was probably one of, if not the strongest currency back then, right? Against, US dollar. So there were a lot of hypes back then. So I used to kind of explore and see what the options are and so forth. And I was kind of flying through all over Asia. So Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, China, Malaysia, Mongolia, Australia, Indonesia, all those places. And through those process, I met who's like literally my almost blood brother, right? Who was Mongolian for the first time over a decade ago. And that's kind of what started to connect me strongly with Mongolia.
Right.
Till this day, he's a great brother of mine. We have many businesses together. We started a first EV company in Singapore together.
Right.
So there's a lot, and he's always been there for me. Differently to the Americans, the kids that I had, childhood friends that I grew up with, right? It's a different kind of bond that I first learned coming out in Asia. Overall, with those, as I started to get older and, I had a child, so forth, you start thinking about life a little bit, is it, what's more important? What's your priority? Is it money versus, is it doing the good deed? Is it being a good father? I think as a man, it's, that's the $1 million question that we have to answer every day, right? You're one person. You could only be at one place at one time. How do you dedicate, how do you sector, fractionize your time for family versus work versus, responsibilities to and I started to shift towards on wanting to, although I'm just a one guy, I always believe that since growing up, I always believe that there's something more that I can do, right? I always felt that way, right? When we grew up, like our generation, the 80s are like, we didn't have Instagram, Facebook, etc., where nothing was really based on social media and online, right? How so many things are accessible by a finger. So it's either books, newspapers, or mentors, right? My father was a big mentor for me. And, now that, you go through these social medias and, a lot of the things he's taught me and he's been, all the influence that he's given me are kind of like what all these things are being said nowadays, right? So it's kind of funny how that works. I guess you never go wrong listening to your elders, right?
Yeah.
So in all that growing up, I spent a lot of my time in Africa before Mongolia. So that's one of the reasons of, EV companies, etc. So I made my wealth in commodity sector, right? And before. So around 2013 and 14, there's been a big shift in climate change, global warmings, etc. Correct?
Right.
And that's when I kind of had this enlightenment in a way of like, wait, maybe it's time I start giving back, right? So, and I think what's very important is who you affiliate yourself with, right? The people around you, the surroundings is so critical and so important in your success or in your failure. Because through my journey moving to Asia or while I was in New York, etc., my biggest asset's always been people, right? People around me, managing the relationships, right? And so forth. Through those process, I was able to kind of go through my Rolodex and see how I can venture out in this climate change, global warming sector. And I've been blessed enough to kind of relink back with some of my contacts, clients from the past. Started developing a lot of like clean air to clean water projects all over Africa. So Africa is a big area that is, much easier to implement in terms of UN to, Paris, like these CDM, voluntary, involuntary, like carbon projects to reduce carbon, right? I spent about 2 to 3 years in Africa,
right?
Working with a lot of over 500 schools on giving clean water to the villages and the, rural areas. Distributing a lot of cook stoves and so forth in a lot of the homes in the rural areas, because in Africa, basically the way the cooking method is, they put 3 cinder blocks.
Right.
So you would just kind of put it like this, and they would just put whatever, right? So it's kind of like the Gur district in a way. But at least, Gur district, you have the heater that you use as a stove.
Yeah.
This is just cinder blocks. They put whatever, trees to leaves to trash, whatever you can burn, and they just put things on top, so all the smoke would just be, exposed, right? So I distributed over, I think, up to date, little over 300,000 cook stoves to all the homes.
Wow. We're in Africa, by the way.
West Africa, East Africa, all over. Out of all those Africa, like Kenya is probably my favorite, because the safari and so forth. So it's
never been to Kenya before.
Yeah, I mean, Ghana's nice, Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, I've been all over Africa. Right?
And this is after China, right?
Correct. So so I developed a lot of the carbon credits, but fundamentally, everything that I've learned in Trader's World, right? Kind of, it was just plug and play, right? That's what's very funny. So if you kind of even look at all these big trading companies nowadays, and now everyone is talking about carbon, right? Everyone's talking about climate change, right? I was lucky enough to kind of go in it a few years before, but you look at it now, and the person in charge of the biggest, trading company, Glencore, for example, the guy who was leading the carbon desk used to be the head of oil, right? Oil and gas.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, but because it's plug and play, right? So with the carbon projects and helping reducing carbon emissions, etc., is you're just replacing commodities with these products, whether it's for cook stoves to water purification systems, whatever it may be, or trees for planting, right? Whatever it may be, and it's just import, export, and distribution, right? So it's a plug and play, and I think that previous experience kind of gave me a lot of the success in being able to successfully register, retire, and deliver a lot of the positive impact in a lot of the countries in Africa. So I guess as of today, I'm pretty confident to say that probably out of Asia, I am one of the, what would you say, a trader in carbon that have retired probably one of the most amount of carbons. So a little over 13 million credits already as of today. So that's something that I am very proud of, and hopefully I can continuously give back. And in all that process and so forth, I guess now we are gonna, in a parallel as we move in that stage in life, 2000, be around 16, 17-ish and so forth. Through these things, there's always transactions involved, right? As we know. I don't know how much I'm freely allowed to speak of it, but in a lot of the international businesses you do, there's just, you got to pay the toll in certain things in life, right?
Very much so.
And the easiest way to accomplish that in that era was crypto. And that's how I was naturally kind of introduced to crypto space back then.
There was a lot of opportunities.
Correct.
Right.
And here comes and I said this on other podcasts, but here comes the kimchi premium, right? The era. And, being, I guess, Korean, if you may, and doing a lot of the projects related to carbon, etc., out of Korea, I was just automatically exposed to this opportunity of supply and demand. So what was very unique with kimchi premium is that Korea have a very unique banking system, right? Financial regulation system that Mongolia now follows. So everything is based on Korean won.
Very much so.
And now Mongolia must base everything to it. So when you convert, before Mongolia used to allow straight from like US to USD to Japanese yen, for example. But now you have to go through Mongolian turig and then. So Korea's been practicing that for God knows how long, right? And because of that, all the transaction had to be done in Korean won, which that wasn't really accessible in terms of pairing with Bitcoin. Yet Bitcoin was soaring everywhere. Everybody's talking about Bitcoin. I mean, you're talking price went up from under $1,000 to what, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. So in that process, here I was where I had this perfect opportunity where I'm American, but I guess I'm Korean, where I was able to kind of be the bridge in between. And there weren't that many players that were young enough, that were innovative enough, that were, I guess, quick enough to kind of recognize that opportunity. So there were a few Koreans that were doing it, but they didn't have access to a lot of Bitcoins, etc., to be able to supply the market, right? Because of that, demand increased, price soared up. So I mean, at a certain point, you're talking the premium was over 38% to almost as high as 42%, right? I mean, that's crazy. Like, it's just unheard of, right? And through that process, I developed a lot of relationships in crypto space, right? I was one of a very handful of guys doing a lot of the OTC Bitcoin deals and so forth. And that's how I, in that OTC deals, I was introduced to who is now one of my closest younger brother, Gantik.
So you guys met in Korea?
No, we met. I flew to Mongolia to meet him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was looking for ways to gather more, etc. Back then, Mongolia was just taking off with Trade.mn, the first exchange. Gantik was the CEO handling. He needed liquidity. He was always been advocating for crypto, right? As we know, he's the godfather of crypto, Bitcoin in Mongolia, right?
Very much so. Yeah.
And so we hit it off very well from the get-go. I was able to provide him with the liquidity that Mongolia needed, and in return, he was able to provide me with some of the Bitcoins as well out of Mongolia, right? And I think that relationship kind of grew from there. Like, it was just kind of like 1-2 time kind of thing. I flew in, met, did the deal, flew out, but the relationship never ended. And whenever he, flew out over to Singapore, I was living out in Singapore, and so forth. We just kind of kept in touch, kind of connected. He was kind of one of the guys where you could just pick up where you left off, and just nothing ever changes. There was no awkwardness. It was just as if we knew each other for a very long time.
Right.
So we kept in touch, and around COVID time, January of 2020, I believe.
Right.
I was previously, so I had a Mongolian wife, right? So we were in Mongolia, and basically because of the COVID, we got stuck, right? And we weren't able to go back to Singapore. And I guess through that process, I spent a lot of my times with Gantik, just discussing ideas. There are ways that I was able to help him, mentor him. He was able to help me also. And we spent a lot of times together. For him was also, look, Dave, you're always kind of flying all over. You're never really around. You're not really in Mongolia, right? This is a great opportunity for us to kind of put together like all the ideas, everything we've been discussing, and see, so it was a very good way for us to build that bond to the next level in a professional way, right? And that's when, and that's around the time where Gantik's career started to kind of move up the chain as well, right? In the blockchain, etc., in the space. And he created this dream team, I guess, or I guess the Mongolians call the Mongolians Avengers, right? Those guys and so forth. And he asked me, look, you're here. I don't think you're, when the time comes, I guess you'll go back. But until then, it'd be nice if you could come and kind of help the project and, from your Rolodex to experiences, etc. And that's kind of how seems like how I appeared in Mongolia, but that's the behind story of it.
Wow. So I was always under the impression that you came into Mongolia for the first time after IHC's
initial
fundraiser. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Well,
I don't know how a lot about this space anyway, but that's very interesting. So you've been through the entire journey where the initial fundraising of IHC back in August of 2021. Were you in Mongolia at the time?
Yeah. Gantig introduced all of us all together back in June of 21. And then, that's...
And the founding team, right?
Correct, together. And then that was the birth. And that's where I met, mungchen, idre, all together. And then in August, obviously, that's the birth of IHC.
So that's interesting. I wanted to ask, how was the story of Dave joining the Ich Global team? But I think you answered it. So on to the next one. It's been 2 years, like you've said, since the birth of IHC, and a whole lot of things happened. Well, not just in Mongolia, all over the world, right?
Sure.
And it's been very interesting covering it at Lemon Press, but unfortunately, it's the blockchain and cryptocurrency topic seemed to be. If the one day it's the biggest topic of the day, and the next week nobody seems to be talking about it, right? So it's been 2 years, and I think when the initial fundraising of IHC's success happened, it was amazing, and it was an event that never happened before in the history of Mongolia, in a sense that for a startup, for a company that's only a few months old, raising that much money, it was amazing. And I think in a way that also gave a head start to what is the current landscape of capital market in Mongolia. A lot of companies are interested in public fundraising. A lot of companies are interested in going public, So in a way, I thank the team behind IHC. That was amazing. Could you put us through the journey so far over the last 2 years? What's been going on?
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies now, right? Not many people know about this.
There's a lot of companies. You guys been venturing into different fields.
Correct.
There's a lot of subsidiaries right now. Please go into that.
So, yeah, I mean, I could still taste, smell, pretty much the entire 6 senses of my body of that night, right?
Right.
Broke the internet.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, obviously. It's been a roller coaster ride all along. But first and foremost, I think the biggest differentiation between us and other projects, not just local, even in foreign, globally, is the fact that, especially Gantig and I, right, we have experience in the crypto blockchain world from the past. And the biggest most critical component was always the money raising is the easy part, right? How do you maintain it was the biggest that was the biggest question, and that was the biggest I guess focus for us, right? How do you maintain this startup or this crypto project without just burning through your cash? And because you've seen thousands of projects raise money and disappear, or they basically go PK because they weren't able to manage it correctly, right? As a startup, especially, right? Where do you put your assets and money? Is it in development, R&D, or is it in operation? Is it in cash flow, right? It's always. I mean, it's not just crypto. I think that's everywhere, right? Generally. So to your point, our focus was, okay, with this money, we have to be smart and we have to divide and conquer in a way, but we have to be able to make sure that the company will be sustainable. But also focus on the utilities and further developments as well. But we never put that ahead of, I guess, maintaining the operation and continuously being able to grow and looking at the future, right, in the blockchain space and so forth. And that's when, from being just the coin project, we started developing into exchange. We started to move into esports space. We started going into even, Mongche wanted to go into even basketball locally, right? To, going into Root Leaf, other investments, right? All these projects were, many may think like, hey, your crypto project, why are you expanding, adding so many? But no, in essence, it was to create an ecosystem around the main cryptocurrency, right? So that was the main focus around it. So esports to apes, etc., was more for marketing, right? But also, we thought that, there's a lot of opportunity that isn't aligned with crypto, Web3, blockchain space, and esports. So that was a good in alignment. Exchange is obviously, you got to own the hardware and the software, right? So that was the other, and so forth. Root Leaf and others are projects that we believe that are critical in Mongolian growth in not just blockchain, right? Agriculture is a big part of GDP, to part of ecosystem, capital market in Mongolia. And to be able to utilizing blockchain space to that technology, emerging tech into a sector that is going to only become bigger and bigger and bigger in the future was, as young generations, us being the leader in the space and so forth, were, it's like, why wouldn't you, right? So it's been a journey, right, throughout. In terms of utilities and global expansions, our focus was, we got to just get out there. Unless people know, unless people see, they're not going to know. How many people even know where Mongolia is, right?
Very much so.
Nowadays, thanks to the social media, I witnessed, I'm sure everyone did, like some of these global influencers kind of coming into Mongolia and so forth. When we were first advocating for Mongolia, when I was, doing speeches or interviews, etc., in overseas, every question I got was, "Where's Mongolia?" Right? Is it in China? A lot of my icebreaker used to be like, "Yeah, I'm sorry for being late. I had to, look for a stable to lead my horse." Right? So,
and that gets this attention.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, right? And it's like first year, especially like 21 to early like 22, like. No one was really advocating for Mongolia, especially in the blockchain space, esports, whatever. I am it's one of, with my greatest, like, I guess, I'm grateful and proudful at the same time, in the sense of how I genuinely do believe that as a foreigner, I was one of the first real advocate for the love of Mongolia and the potential, right? I don't think the things that I've done are the reasons why now Mongolia is getting the attention of the social media. I don't take the credit for that. But at the end of the day, who cares, as long as it's getting the attention, right? And that's the reason why our coin was very different from other locals, or that we were able to get listed on all these global exchanges. Why that was critical was, like I said, unless people see it, right, they don't know. Why we, had the major, display in time, in New York City, right? Times Square, all that, it's to allow people to know research, right? They just Google, what is this, right? 30 seconds, breaking internet, like, it's just, in a blockchain space, in a crypto space, it's not always about the utility. It's not always just about the tech, unfortunately, right? It also comes with the swag. It also comes with a little bit of hip, right? The trend, correct? You look at all the meme coins, right? And so forth. So you got to be able to balance that, right? It can't just be about protocols, right? The tech, the utility behind it. It's gotta have some flavors to it as well. And I think, you know, that made our partnership work so well because, you know, for example, Mungchin was extremely good at that, right? Kind of bringing that flavor, bringing that swag. Gani was extremely good at the, you know, the overall layout of how the utility and visioning of where it needs to go. You know, E is, you know, he's one of the most respected traders, right? So, I mean, nothing else to be said, right? He's one of the most respected, the best traders in Mongolia. So being able to kind of implement that, you know, the trading aspect of it as well in the skill sets of, I guess, kind of not guaranteeing, but promising certain, you know, values in the future. He plays a major role in that, right? Then all my Rolodex to be able to get out to these global, you know, partnerships, to collaborations and so forth. I think just it was a very good synergy and a partnership because we didn't really have we didn't have a similar kind of traits that, you know, we never had to really fight as to like, hey, who's better or who did, right? I think everybody played an extremely great role. It was a good synergy, good partnership. And, you know, that's where our focus was in terms of that expansion. And we genuinely thought that in a crypto space, doesn't matter if it's Mongolia, right? There are a lot of projects out of even more developed countries like Vietnam, other places that are, you know, shining and making it work. So we thought, why not, right? So I think those are the differences and those are the kind of the journeys that we went through. But I think overall, the biggest differentiation between us and the rest is, and I'm not here discrediting the others at all, but are the fact that we did things more, you know, we planned it all out. It wasn't just, you know, young guys getting together during COVID and going like, yo, let's raise money. No, right? It was kind of well thought through in the sense of, okay, once, you know, we did the IEO and, you know, we listed in Mongolia. Okay, we need to get to, you know, so we started with like top 30 to top 20. Then, you know, we got our project registered, verified on all the legitimate websites, right? CoinMarketCap, etc. We were the first two. So these are all the things that we planned ahead of time, right? And through those, working with all the exchanges, you know, people ask like, and every exchanges that we've listed, right, in the process, there were always reasons behind it, right, of why we work with them. Whitebit, for example, extremely reputable in, you know, protocols to securities in Europe. So we wanted to try to target the European market, right? So, and, you know, Bit Global to other, you know, exchanges, Bitmain and others, like we even had an issue on some of them with securities, but we planned all these listings as well. It wasn't just like, oh, they want to list us, let me just throw it at them, right? So I think in those sense, we planned out those listings very well, which turned out why we had such a great success, right? In terms of, you know, maintaining that operation and continuously kind of growing was where our, you know, focus on esports to basketball and other things kind of worked out pretty well, you know, until recent events.
Right.
I can hardly avoid this question. And a lot of our viewers and community of IHC and the cryptocurrency blockchain market in general will want to know. And a lot of media and people seem to cover the event itself.
Sure.
I want to know
what was the experience behind the IchBit team went through when the initial arrests happened and investigation started, you know? And now it's surreal. It happened almost half a year ago, but it just seems to be very recent in a lot of people's memories. A lot of people want to know what happened.
I mean, it is what it is. You know, my partners got arrested. World moves on, right? You have to just keep going, right? For me to come back, right? So after the rest, etc., due to our deal with Binance, etc., I had to go back out to Thailand. And I guess that was like the big pivot. But me coming back is obvious. I don't think there's any, value to that. But never said this officially, but through that whole process, for us, it was, the world moves on, right? You just gotta keep fighting. You gotta just keep going. But I think the most critical component to this is my kids, our staffs, our whole team. They're the ones that have to go home and answer to their parents or to their friends, to their significant others, etc. Right? But I am proud to say that we didn't lose a single staff through the entire process.
Wow.
So I think people that know me, I refer to my staffs as my kids, right? But I think they are the real stars in this whole process, right? It's not me or my partners. Like I said, things happen. You just have to keep going, right?
Right.
But that's kind of expected out of us, right? But for my kids, it's they had every right, every opportunity to, every reason to walk away and to kind of, why gamble? They're all young, right? Especially on ex-Meta side, etc. I work very closely with the young generation, right? The Generation Z and so forth. It's always been fickle, right? When you go for interviews, etc., it's like, they need the experience, but, so you're asking for the job for the experience, right? It's like chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah, very much so.
So I focused on, no, it doesn't have to be chicken or the egg, right? It's like, as long as you meet certain criteria that I look for, you're hired, right? So the average age is like 23.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And for these kids to endure that process from witnessing the actual event to going through the whole process, they're the gem, they're the star. I think they are truly the backbone and the foundation of why IHC is still going strong. The community is still strong. Why ex-Meta, I'm not backed by conglomerates in Mongolia, okay? I'm not backed by politicians. Hell, I can't even go to these meetings because everyone speaks in Mongolian, right? So a lot of the even meetings related to the exchange, etc., regulations and so forth, by CFO or my compliance officer, they go and I get it all translated and so forth, right? But despite of all that, I am confident enough to say that we are the leading exchange in Mongolia. I don't have hundreds of staffs or, these staffs with 10 years of experience, right? I got, like I said, it's all Generation Z. This is their first job. And it's an emerging tech. It's an emerging sector, right? So it's new to everyone. But how we are able to be so successful, right? How we are able to kind of capture this market. And for me to be here today like this, it's really, the backbone is based on our staffs and our family, right? What I call families, the working family, right? I mean, it is what it is. It's been tough. Like, you can't sugarcoat it, right?
Right.
But I think the process has also taught me that, when you have the strong foundation, the backbone of the kids trusting in you, that, things are going to get better, things are going to be okay, and continuously looking forward and actually listening and implementing, executing my advice to, the things that I try to implement for them, is a result of why we're still going very strong. I don't know if that answers or that is sufficient for your, people, but this is the truth.
That is sufficient enough. How's the team atmosphere now that the founding team is back in business, I would say?
Yeah,
Could I say that?
Yeah. It's obviously much brighter than before. But I think for us, it was never a question of will it be back versus we kind of knew it was just a matter of when. So, and it's been a while now already, as you said, right? Since they've been back. So it's now, if you ask me, it's just every day same, right? It's just it's just a different day. We work hard. We're excited for a lot of the new things that we're working on. In terms of IHC, there's still certain things that are without, they're not in our control, right? So there's only certain things that we can do. But the most important thing for people to know is that we are prepared, right? It may seem that, we are just kind of ignoring some of the things that people are kind of spinning out into their own ventures and so forth. But I assure you that we are as prepared as we can be, right?
Right.
I think that's one of the most critical things in management, right? Is you have to be prepared. If you react after an event, you're already late. So we are prepared for whatever the result will be, whatever the outcome will be, right? At the end of the day, we had a very good, solid, footprint when we first launched the project. And I don't see why, it needs to be deviated from that, regardless of what the outcome is.
Thank you for that, Dave. Thank you for sharing this story. Now I want to move on to Xmeta.
Sure.
Obviously, there's a lot of projects being undertaken by the IHBIT Global, as we've talked about. There's the Root Lift project, which we will go on to later on. But now I kind of want to focus on Xmeta. So as of June of this year, I think the number stays the same, but there are 12 exchanges operating officially with the FRC's regulation in Mongolia. And so they basically have the license, right? So you have 11 competitors so far. And as you've said, there's almost 100,000 users of Xmeta, but there's a lot of other players in the market as well. Like there was Trade.mn, Trade. A lot of people know, one of the earliest exchanges in Mongolia. Also, Gantek, your teammate, was the CEO of the exchange, right? And there's also CoinHub and a lot of other players. What makes Xmeta unique from those companies, and what puts you in a winning position in the future? I really want to know that from the product perspective and everything else.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from the surface, right, Xmeta seems complicated versus other local exchanges here. Whether it's the UI interface to, all these pairings to, etc. But I think that's what makes it unique. It's part of the growing pain, right? I believe Mongolia, so as I start to dive into this tech sector in Mongolia, right? The biggest thing I hear is simple. Look, Mongolians like it simple. They don't do complicated, right? They're like, we don't do complicated, just keep it as simple, right?
Right.
Certain things have to have certain minimum components involved, right? So safety, transparency, security. I don't want to say other competitors lack such a thing. I think we are just more superior in that because we work with literally the number one, companies in those sectors. So when it comes to security work, we, work with the number one. When it comes to safety, we work with number one. When it comes to transparency, we work with the number one company in the world, right? So I think it's not discrediting the competitors, right? But it's more like we work with the best. And when we decided we thought it'd be, we should go into the exchange sector and so forth. These are the things that were the most critical that lacked in Mongolia, right? So sure, certain things, you have to give and take, right? But so I know that in the beginning that was a big challenge, right? And we tried to do everything to try to make it as simple as possible. But so like our KYC process, for example, is a nightmare compared to the competitors, right? So we work with a industry leader called Jumio. Yet I just can't, like there's certain things. So for me, it's whether it's personal or professional, in life, and you same, right? Finding this amazing platform, Lemon Press and so forth. You have to make decisions every day, but it's all about give and take, right? It's all about negotiation. But one thing that I don't negotiate is my conviction, right? So my conviction has always been, okay, if we're going to operate an exchange, if we're going to provide a platform for people to come and trade and trust you with the assets, trust you with their money, etc., there are certain things that you just can't negotiate. You just can't go about, right? So, I mean, to me, that's my conviction, right? So I would never negotiate on that. So we had to push for, so I'm very happy to work with Jumio, and although it costed us arm and a leg, whether it was complicated, I think what sets us apart, right, are these things that people don't know, and they may complain about it, but in fact, these are all for the users' benefits. We are the only exchange in Mongolia that runs a blockchain like audit system in the back that kind of detects any irregular activities, whether it's for AML reasons to red flags, other etc. Working with a company called Chainalysis, which is also a industry leader. Chainalysis has implemented their system with the local police here as well, right? Wow. Through the governments as well. That's how credible they are, right? And every year they have these big conferences where it's not like these crypto conferences that you think of. I mean, all the C-levels, and a lot of the chief, compliance officers to their head of their legal teams, CEOs, they all gather once in New York and once in Singapore, right? And they host these summits working with regulatory, departments to the people within the sectors and so forth. And it's very informative, right? And it's a very formal environment that they bring, because they're very focused on regulations, guidelines, safety, etc., right? And we're the only exchange that implements that, for example, right? So these, and obviously, I think everyone knows we offer the world's biggest liquidity pool, working with Binance, right? I think that's also very critical. But in addition to that, what we offer, because of that relationship, all the users' assets are protected, right, on our SAF fund. So if anything were to happen, etc., all the Mongolian users that are holding their assets on XMeta, they are insured, right? So they're always protected. And the last, and I don't want to say this in a wrong way, but I don't know how other exchanges do it. So maybe it's not that we're superior, but for us, a sense of a comfort is we never touch or mingle with users' assets, right? So everything is, registered, everything is held on Binance hot wallets, etc., that can be verified. And XMeta as a company do not have not only the access, we're not supposed to, but we have zero connection, or we have zero role in managing those assets. They're just stored in a hot wallet and it's safe for the users. I don't know how other exchanges do it here, but these are critical things to run an exchange.
Right.
And I think these are what differentiates us from the rest. And once the 2.0 launches, I think the most critical components are through the years of operating now, right, for over a year, the 2.0 will highlight the parts that people complained, right? So that's where the focuses were. We already had the best. So technically speaking, 2.0 was not really needed.
Right.
But the 2.0 was based on listening to, so we are very confident to say we had over 97% success rate on support, right? I think we were one of the first, or if not the first, to kind of offer truly 24-hour support system. To me, that was very important. It's all about experience for the users, right? And it's, as a foreigner, it's one of the biggest, like my pet peeve here, right? It's like this customer support, like the support is so lacking in Mongolia, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure, at least on XMeta, you get international standard, right? And I think we've done pretty well at that. So listening to all the issues and so forth, the 2.0 kind of highlights all the things that the users wanted, and we just made it a little bit, so we implemented those changes to users' demands, users' needs.
Right.
So we're pretty excited for that.
Right. So one thing I want to note
Sure.
and touch on is, like you've said, XMeta works with the industry leaders when it comes to its security, transparency, and liquidity, right? And like you've said, you talked about how other exchanges covers these issues, but to my experience, there's just a lot of insider trading in Mongolia. And I'm not talking about blockchain or crypto. It's just the entire financial market itself and in the capital market. And to top it off, the cryptocurrency market itself also has a lot of reputation of being manipulated in the past.
Still, yeah.
It's still being done.
Sure.
And there's
a lot of major cases like the FTX and it's
can't deny it.
Yeah. How do you guys, with the expectation with those, obviously working with the industry leaders helps. How do you guys do your own infrastructure? You know, does it? Because I used to work at a telecommunication company, and one of the major telecommunications back in here in Mongolia. There's also always the issue of, will the telecommunication company be able to listen to your conversation? Will they be able to read your texts? You know, there's always an issue of security. Yeah. And the one thing users can trust is this company imports their service from the credited, globally trusted companies. That's how the users trust them, right? What's the situation with the XMeta?
Yes, so that was kind of what I was highlighting as the last component for XMeta, right? So yes, absolutely. I think just simply say, hey, trust us. You know, we're the best. That's lame, right? There's got to be facts behind it. So the most critical component as an exchange that we are, so confident, and I think this is the biggest trust factor for the users, are that all the users' assets are stored in third-party hot wallet by the Binance that is registered, insured, and bonded, right? So we have no access to that, right? Now the third party, so Binance, right? So Binance does have access to that, right? But Binance is the biggest player in the industry. So if you question, why does Binance? Because someone has to have access to it to be able to recover, to be able to, hold and transact for you, right? But in return, Binance says, okay, fine then, but we insured it. So yes, we do have a control over, but we're not touching it. We guarantee it. And if we were, here's a insured, a bond, so, a fund that has over, as of today, a little over $800 million that guarantees the assets for the users, right? So XMeta, through our partnership, have a 100% guarantee on all users' assets through that hot wallet. that is stored in Binance, right? That X-Meta have no access to. So to me, like I said, I don't know how other exchanges do it here, but that's how we do it, and I believe that is the next best thing that we can offer for users in Mongolia. So that's the most, I think, critical and the correct question, I think, right? For users, right? Also, as we develop the liquidities, the X-Meta 2.0 on other things, we are extremely sensitive to the process of how the trading works. Like as a owner, CEO, whatever, as a leader, I'm supposed to encourage our users to, use all the benefits of the 2.0 and the features, the leverage, etc. But I think my management style leadership is I want to make sure that Mongolians are comfortable with that. So through this migration, you're going to see us doing a lot of safety protocols prior to opening the features leverage trading. Right. I think I said this on my social media yesterday. Out of these 100,000 plus users, or let's say 500,000 crypto adapted users in Mongolia, how many are actually utilizing this space to grow your wealth versus they're just gambling, right? So another critical component for me as one of the leaders in the platform offering this new industry is not, for me, it's not just taking users and making money. I think I have all the reasons and responsibilities to make sure as I offer these services, I also am responsible for their well-beings. Now, I could only do so much, right? So I am trying to find ways to provide protocols, etc. And, not alerting, but I guess educating, informing them that it comes at a cost. It's a risk and reward, right? So these are the things that I guess, if it answers your question, are the things that I believe I am doing every day that I can to try to provide that comfort, trust, and sense of, I guess, security for our users. X-Meta is like, we're men. We can't go through like a baby. We don't give birth, right? We never go through the 9 months of pregnancy, right? For me, X-Meta is literally the, I guess, 9 months of the pregnancy process that I have to endure and I've gone through. And the outcome of that is not just the product, the company, my kids, but it's also the 100,000 plus users. Hopefully with the 2.0, it will set different standard for sure. That I'm very confident. Doesn't matter if there's 15 competitors, 100 competitors. Right. I am confident that X-Meta will be the leader, will be the one that are setting the new standard in Mongolia in this space. That comes at a price, meaning if we're going to be the leader, we have to do it right. We have to set the right example and we have to set the right protocols where it's not just, it's not a bragging rights. This is literally a financial platform that we're offering for the people, just like you and me. So I think it's very important that as we set out to be the leader and set out to set examples, it's not just about how many users or how many, dollars in trading value we've done. But I think it's very important for the experience, protection, safety, and making sure that the support and others are behind, what we're offering to the public.
Right now, I saw there was a trend of blockchain developers move into generative AI. I saw a post somewhere that a lot of software engineer talents are moving from one place to another place, in a sense. How are you guys managing that? Could you answer that very shortly, please?
AI is gonna come around.
Right.
I think AI is still very early stage. I don't think AI is going to replace any jobs, right? I think it will create more jobs. In terms of the blockchain, etc., I am still somewhat skeptical as personal view in the AI space with blockchain at this point. And quite frankly, I don't know the need of it so much in that space from what the purpose and what blockchain is supposed to do and so forth. It's just, you're just, the way people are phrasing it is very misleading, right? It's basically AI writing the codes, etc., and implementing it, right?
Right. When can we expect Xmeta 2.0?
Sure. So as of October 1st, we're going to start physical hard asset migration, meaning starting October 1st, all users must start transferring their assets from current Xmeta account to the new Xmeta 2.0 account. We're going to be promoting that for 13 days to be exact. So all the users have 13 days to move all the assets from the old to the new. Right. So that will involve creating a new account on new Xmeta 2.0 and kind of getting used to the whole new process, right? So it'll be a very busy 2 weeks.
Wow. Will the users have to do it manually?
Correct.
Wow.
Again, it goes with the safety because we have no access to the custodian.
Right. What if they don't transfer the fund in?
So so the good thing is we have access to all the, contact information from the users. So our support team is preparing on that whole migration process to make sure that every penny will be counted for.
Right.
If somehow we're not able to get a hold of someone, or maybe someone used a phone number that doesn't exist, etc., we are prepared to even, create physical ways to be able to reach out to them.
Right.
But also in the worst scenario, they are still stored in a blockchain, right?
Right.
So there will still be ways that we would do everything to try to recover. And we've done that in the past as well when they made wrong deposits, etc. Right? So it'll be a painful one. Hopefully everyone will listen, everybody will reply, so it'll be a smooth, make our job a little bit easier.
Right.
Yes.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
The 2 weeks.
But exciting.
Yeah. Okay, now then hopefully the customers will be able to see it for themselves when the Xmeta 2.0 launches, and customers will make a decision on whether it was a good development or bad development. So
yes.
Moving on. So like we talked about, the IKBIT global team has been investing and supporting the esports and sports team. There's the IHC Apes, the basketball team in the Mongolian Basketball Association, which was quite a bit of success the last year, considering it was the first year they were in the league. But as for you, you're the chairman of IHC Sports, so I want to go in a bit more into that. And early this year, the IHC's esports team made a groundbreaking success against Brazil's team and America's Cloud9 team in IEM Katowice, right? And I also happened to watch a bit of esports, so it was an amazing thing for Mongolian talents to competing against the world standard teams. And it's very much like a local football player playing against Messi, that just doesn't happen. And I don't think that's ever going to happen in Mongolia's football sector, unfortunately. But seeing that translate into esport was amazing for me. And also there was your IHC's Dota, right? Dota team recently became a world champion at International Esports Federation's tournament. And so it has been amazing, and there was a lot of obstacles for other ventures, but in the esports team that you guys manage, it has been amazing. How have you guys been doing it, and what's in the future for the esports team?
Well, it wasn't always all amazing. We did have a few dramas in between as well. For example, our Cisco team decided to just leave our organization unannounced and so forth, right? So there was some drama there. But look, I think we got lucky. B, I think management is extremely critical. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's tech, esports, whatever the space, or and we, again, I would love to take all the credits, but I think the most of the credit goes to our foundation, our kids, the team behind that are never exposed, that people are not aware of, right? We really gave all we had for these esports kids, right? Behind doors, behind curtains, you know, we had over 7 to 10 people that were working nonstop, trying to making sure, allowing the players to be able to do what they're good at, right? Versus, I think the biggest difference between then and now and what we've set out differently is the fact that esports is not its actual company. It is an actual organization. People think that, you know, we just put a bunch of kids in a room, whether it's on their mobile device or the computer, and then they just play and then they just eat, sleep, go kind of thing. And that's what's been happening. That's what I've been witnessing, right?
Very true.
That's what, so esports was something that Gantik and I were discussing before IT, like during this COVID time.
Right.
Gantik is a big esports guy. He's you know, he loves Counter-Strike, right? You know, us like Asian Americans, like he also grew up in the States as well, right? So, you know, that's how we grew up. Like, you know, you go to PC room, you play Counter-Strike, then you go to karaoke, you sing, then you end up at an Asian place somewhere drinking, and then recycles, right?
Yeah.
So he always had this passion saying, look, Dave, Mongolians have very good talent for esports. So we thought about him and I even starting an esports team separately before IT, right? So once the IC took off, etc., us kind of taking over esports team was inevitable in a way. What we did differently is the management, right? So it was taking it as a legitimate company. So all these extra expenses. Initially, people are going, what the hell? Like, you don't need all this, but you know, for me, you got to start right from the first time. So the biggest difference was the management team behind it. It wasn't just throwing a bunch of kids somewhere, hey, go play. You know, if you win, great. If not, bye-bye, right? No. So we had a full management team supporting from merchandising to preparing for tournaments, sponsorships, to coordinating with other organizations, etc., creating competitive matches, practicing, gathering coach, etc., right? Hiring. And so those are all the things that really made a difference. And when that meets with the player's talent, I think is when the success was shown, right? In terms of CSGO, I think I did make an official statement about it as well. They did breach our contract.
Right. I was gonna ask that.
Yeah. So I figure. So it was players' fault of breaching our contract. So there was a major issues with a lot of the organizers from overseas, globally, because you can't do that, right? And it leaves bad, you know,
reputation.
Correct, and so forth. But at the end of the day, why do we do what we do? Esports was a great way for us to advocate for Mongolia. I think I've done a pretty good job on a tech space.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So we talked a whole lot about IHC and IKBit Global and some more about Xmeta. The time seems to be running out, so I have 3 more questions.
Sure.
And the first one is, obviously the market itself and cryptocurrency. It's a lot of people's favorite and only questions they seem to have these days. When will the market will go back up? So what's your opinion on the current situation of the market?
I think I said this on Bloomberg as well, but I'm very optimistic.
Right.
I'm optimistic for this winter. I'm optimistic for next year for sure. I know people talk about every 4 years bouncing back and etc. But you know, when you look at crypto, right? I can't emphasize this hard enough. I'll make it very quick. First, study the project, right? Everyone is out there. Why people love crypto is it's the only thing in emerging tech market sector right now that can give you that 100x return. I don't like that idea. I think we need to, you need to work for everything, but it is out there.
Right.
So instead of asking when is the market going to bounce back, while it's not, you should be studying the market, right? Educate yourself, study the project, study the new protocols. What is happening? How is that utilized, right? Number two, what people are why they ignore is you have to read up on regulations. Look at the Ripple case, right? Look at the FTX, all those things will have a dramatic effect, right? People are saying BTC ETF, depending on the result, what is that going to be, etc. There are reasons of following those, current events, right?
Right.
So you need to not only educate yourself on the projects and the protocols to utilities, etc. You need to also be extremely well of what's happening in the current events in the in the regulation space, right? For example, there's been a lot of rumors about Binance having issues, blah blah blah. What people don't realize is they just got their license in Japan and they're full blown out launching in Japan. Don't listen to the rumor. Right. Don't listen to the gossip. Actually read, actually study, actually follow through. As you practice those habits, I think when the market does come back up, you'll be in a much better position.
So Mongolia seems to be one of the leading countries in the cryptocurrency adoption. And there was a study or report, a report by the Mongolian Joint Association of Exchanges. So this is a new association that involves all the 12 exchanges and their representatives from those exchanges. And according to them, there were about 850 users in Mongolia owning one token at least, and this number is of course cumulative, so people might own multiple accounts on different exchanges. So that just means Mongolia had a lot of projects, and 12 exchanges, that's a lot. And in 2021, total of $166 million were raised through IEO. So it was a crazy number. That just doesn't happen, So there was, in a sense, there was a lot of projects. What was the project that got your attention? It just happened. A lot of things happened.
Besides my project, right?
Very much so.
Was there any?
Mongol NFT. I honestly thought Mongol NFT would have a lot, I don't want to say brighter, but would have had a lot more success than it did. I was actually quite shocked. The team behind it are extremely smart, talented, gifted. What I love about Mongol NFT is how the founding company behind, who's been industry leader in traditional tech space for over a decade, right?
Right.
How they were able to snap of a finger, migrate and adapt into blockchain crypto space, right? Because traditional company just don't do that, right? How they're able to adapt so quickly and in such a smooth, in a finesse way. And I mean, their products were nice, and the team behind it are, like I said, they're gifted, talented. I respect, a lot of the people from Mongol NFT. And I think if they were able to kind of replicate that or make that happen, maybe in different countries, or maybe provide more utilities, and others might have had a better result. But I think still today they have a great opportunity to make a good comeback. And I was extremely shocked when I saw they blew my mind away when I saw when I first saw their products, etc. I was like that's what gave me hope for Mongolia tech space, which now I own my own tech company, but it's like that they are the ones that actually gave me that vision.
Right.
So I'm extremely grateful for them. And I wish them the best. And I think their project has a very, very good potential to become one of the greatest projects in crypto space globally, if they wanted to.
By the way, for the listeners of this podcast, Lemon Press is celebrating its 3rd year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, this month. And we're doing we're releasing out NFTs.
Nice.
We're finally doing that with Mongol NFT team.
I didn't know that. So there you go.
Yeah.
So we're also working with them.
Nice.
Okay.
Moving on. Well, I had a question prepared about the Ripple versus Securities Exchange Commission case in America, which I briefly wanted to get at. And there was a verdict that said Ripple was a security if it was sold to institutional investors, and not a security if it was traded on an exchange.
Retail investors.
Retail investors, right?
Now, my question was, how should the government play its role in the future when it comes to working with in your opinion, of course.
In Mongolia?
In Mongolia, right.
So first and foremost, I hope Mongolian government will be a little bit more active in these situations, but also learn from it. For example, XRP is like they yes, it was more of a win-win kind of thing, right? But sure, they got the good verdict. That project is meant to provide a fast, prompt, payment solution.
Right.
And it was a very promising project as well, until the government kind of came in and pretty much butchered the project.
Right.
They missed one of the biggest bull runs, right? Not the biggest, but a decent bull runs because of that.
Yes.
So who's paying for that now, right? So there are consequences to these projects, right? In emerging tech, it's everything matters, right? Like everything matters. Even the tiniest little details, right? Will make a huge dramatic impact on value of your project to, future partnerships, etc. I don't know how many government people listen to your podcast, but that's what I genuinely hope for to ask is every decision that they make, every word, vocabulary that they use could have heaven and hell variation in result of a certain project that may be linked to over 100,000 people of your own country, of your own citizens, right?
Right.
So I hope rather than against, because it is an emerging tech, I wish and I kindly ask for them to work with for your people, right?
Right.
Because we're okay. But what about the holders? What about the people that the community members? Right. What about the companies that want to utilize this emerging tech?
Right.
Like you guys are innovative, you guys are young, so you guys are able to use NFTs for your anniversaries and so forth, right? Which I applaud, like nice.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If the government are always against you but not working with you, right? One of the effects that could happen is even if a company like Lemon Press wanna implement these emerging tech, you can't. One of the things that I would love to be able to do is, like I've always said this, like use blockchain for notary. Like notary in Mongolia, Mongolia talks about all these emerging techs and all that thing, but yet, you're wasting 3, 4, 5 hours just getting this bloody stamp.
Very true, yeah.
And, you can do that so simply on a blockchain without having to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know, rather than working against us, trying to point out these things, if government works with us, especially in Mongolia, as you said, such a like small population where proof of concept can be implemented so flawlessly, so perfectly, right? In this concentrated city, this is a perfect country, perfect ideal location to be able to implement things and boom, take off. Then what I always say, right? Mongolia can, this is all part of building this digital Silk Road, right? So I started this whole campaign on, I want to create a digital Silk Road and make Mongolia what it once used to be. So back in, the Chinggis days, etc., why Mongolia was so powerful was because of the Silk Road. The entire Europe to Asia, all the merchants, right? All the trading happened through the Silk Road that had to go through Mongolia. Well, now that doesn't exist thanks to Russia, China, etc. But we can replicate that in a digital space. And Mongolia could become what it used to be again, right? Without the whole, need of hundreds of millions of people, right? So using what we lack, using our disadvantage to our advantage. Having less people is good for proof of concept. Everyone being concentrated in Ulaanbaatar, it sucks for driving, traffic, etc. But it's amazing for implementing changes, right? Because everybody's there. So instead of talking about we are becoming a leader in a tech space, blah, 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 let's actually do it. And we can do that with emerging techs. And using blockchain, there's so many, Mongolia, import, export, come on, blockchain, data, storage, transparency. It's the perfect ideal situation, right? So blockchain could be implemented all through. You don't need AI here right now. Mongolia doesn't need AI. But what it does need is transparency, data, and being able to store those data and utilize and add value, right? So, and then payment. Mongolia has been having issues since COVID, etc., with dollar, turu, right? Currency rates. Tether to digital currency could actually help with that. So, I don't know. For Mongolia, I wish the government would work with companies like us, create a hub, zone, I don't know, give a special license that allows it. Maybe, companies or whatever that are willing to participate are able to get paid in, like whatever it is, like there's all these, the bridge is already there, I built it, right? For the last 2 years, that's what I've been working on so hard. And let me rephrase that. That's what we've been working on so hard on making that transition, building that bridge, right? Why can't they just, work with us and have that opportunity to see and the changes, right? Because if you don't do it today, when?
Okay, that's for you, government folks. Okay, so these are the last fun questions I have for you, Dave.
Okay.
And so you've been here in Mongolia for the last few years. I'm pretty sure you have worked with a lot of Mongolian people. What do you like and what do you dislike about Mongolians? Simply,
I like the young generation Z. What I don't like are my generation. To elaborate, the new generation Z Mongolians are, they're amazing. They are, they're smart, bright, eager to learn, right? And much more disciplined. So I always say this, being in my shoe, in my position, right? My job is to provide solutions, right? For the people you work with. Right. What else could I do? That's what you're supposed to do, right? If you're continuously providing solutions to the people you work with, I think you're doing pretty okay as a leader, right? The young generation adapt extremely fast. They're extremely disciplined, right? I always say this, motivations, all that's poison. That's all, it's unnecessary because you are excited to do something today and then tomorrow, you don't even show up, right? So it's all about discipline, showing up early, leaving last, doing that extra hour, right? And Generation Z, from what I've witnessed for the last 2 years or so, like amazing. What I don't like is, I guess it might be more of a cultural thing for the older generation, right? And you see that some with the new generation, younger generations as well, but it's lack of responsibility is what I do see, right? So I think we touched up on that a little bit, right? So every action has consequences and results a reaction to others, right? And you hear a lot, which I hate in Mongolia, is, they're like, so what kind of thing, right? Yati, right? Yeah. Like being late, like, etc. Like all these things, they have no consequences or responsibilities, right? They have the lack of that sense of responsibility, right? It's like, it's okay, juguri, dara, or maragash, or like, why are you so sensitive? Why are you so like, it's okay, why are you so mad, right? But you have to, right? Every, in today's world, and especially if you live in emerging space, emerging tech, emerging space, right? Where, like I said, every little detail matters. You can't say like yate. You can't say so what. You can't say like tomorrow or hamagwe. Right. Like, so those are the things that do annoy me. And I think because of that, I like working with young generations, because less of that exists with the young generation. Yeah.
What was the oh shit moment in Mongolia so far? Aside from traffic, because we have that every day.
My son's mother? Just kidding. Oh shit moment. Besides traffic and my ex, I would have to say probably my biggest oh shit moment was like countryside. Yeah. Lack of bathrooms, lack of, infrastructure, etc. Initially, it was a bit tough. And honestly, when you mix that with winter, I guess like the biggest oh shit would be the winter weather. Yeah, like minus 40. Like, how do you survive?
Right. Yeah.
Like it's like even yesterday, like I was like freezing.
Right.
Like it's like once it goes to like minus, I don't know, like minus 15 below, I'm dying. And you guys are like, and I remember last year, was it like 2022? Right. So I had to go through like full winter here, right?
Yes.
After the IT, all that. Yeah. And I'm like freezing, I'm dying, right? Yeah. Remind you, like, so why people think I live in, like I'm Singaporean is so outside of my home, which is US, I've only had permanent residencies in 2 countries, which is Singapore and Mongolia. So US is my first home, Singapore is my second home, Mongolia is my third home, right? Singapore is hot, like all season. It's, Singapore got 2 weather, right? It's either hot or beep hot, right? So Mongolia is, cold or cold, right?
Yes.
So not having access to a lot of winter clothes, etc. Like, and then when it came like March, I think springtime, like after Tansai, like it was like minus 15.
Yeah.
And people are going, oh, it's such a nice weather. Like, that was crazy, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Makes sense.
I don't know how you guys do it.
Same, actually. I still wonder the same question. And how do we manage that, Yeah. Okay. So that's about Lemon Press. It's lunch hour in a nutshell. Our podcast seems to be ending. Any last remarks you would like to make for our listeners?
I'm available 24/7. I advocate this with a lot of my, people that support me, that love me, or that are even interested in me, which I don't know why. I try to be available all the time. While I'm here, there are any ways that I can support, help, whether it's through mentoring, whether it's through, just advices to whatever it may be. This is where I keep a lot of my, happiness goes into, right? My joy of helping. I've helped numerous amount of people without, without people knowing, right? But I mean, that's why I'm here. That's why I came back here, despite of all that. For my kids, but also for the company, but for all the community and for anyone that needs the help. I will always advocate and fight for Mongolian success, for the digital, road to build Mongolia where it needs to be. Because, Mongolia is a place that has the deepest memories in my heart. My son is half Mongolian, he's born here. And everything that I do today, everything that I do is kind of the only legacy left that I can leave behind for my son, but also for the new generation. And that's genuine.
Okay.
So I hope, feel free to say hi, whatever, if you need help or whatever it may be that I can contribute to, add value to. I'm always available. No one is too little. Nothing is too small,
right?
For me to add any value. So,
thank you. Thank you for that. So, if anybody wanted to reach Dave, I will add his links on our social media and perhaps on the description of this podcast and video.
Yeah. That's fine.
Thank you for being here, Dave.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was lovely.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to talk again at some point in the future.
Sure.
Perhaps after Xmetas 2.0's release and everything, because I'm always hopeful about IHC's projects. I'm passionate about it because I think, like I've said in the beginning of this podcast, for a company to raise that much money in that amount of time has never happened. So a lot of people look up to you guys and count on you. So Godspeed, guys.
Thank you. We'll do our best.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Lemon Press-ийн подкастын хүрээд өндөрлөж байна. Манай Lemon Press-ийн тохимол ажлын өглөө болгон 7 цагаас явдгийг та бүхэн мэдж байгаа байх. Lemon Press-ийг имэйл гэж ороод имэйлээ бүртгүүлээрэй. За тэгээд ланч аврын энэ удаагийн дугаар өндөрлөж байна. Хэдүүлээ ирэх 7 хоног уулзцаая.